Greetings, math fans. All right, so this is day 10 notes, and it's actually worksheet 9. So just kind of keep things ordered here. So day 10 and worksheet 9. All right, and so today's topic is actually solving radical equations. Okay, so it's actually relatively easy. If I just start out with like a really basic problem, if I say square root of x is equal to 3, how do you get rid of a square root? So if I just want x, do you guys agree that if I square a square root, it just goes away? Okay, but I have to square both sides, right? So squaring the square root just takes it away, and I just have x equals, and what's 3 squared? 9. That's the answer to the problem. What? That's it? Okay, so that was a really basic example. So I can give you a problem like this. X plus 2, square root of that, equals 4. So I'm going to square both sides. And I'm going to get, again, this is going to go away. That's going to go away, and I have x plus 2 equals 4 squared, which is 16. I can subtract 2 from both sides, and I get x equals 14. Okay? Right? It's not bad. Okay, so let me get a little more challenging, but not really that big of a deal. So if I get a problem like this, square root of x plus 3, and I'm going to put a minus 4 on the outside equals 2. Here's the deal. Really, really important. See this right here? You need to get this all by itself first. The stuff with the square root's got to be all by itself. So anything other than the square root, like this negative 4 here, you need to move that over to the other side before you can square both sides. So that you basically need this, all stuff here, so I don't care what it is here, is equal to some number. That's what you need before you can square both sides. Okay? So for this one, let me erase some of the stuff that I just drew here so it's not so cluttered. All right, so I'm going to add 4 to both sides first before I square both sides. So square root of x plus 3 equals 6. Now the radical is all by itself. So I'm going to square both sides. And remember that squared just takes away that square root. So I get x plus 3 equals 36. So now I'm going to solve for x. X plus 3 equals 36, so subtract 3. X equals 33. Okay? Not bad. I can also do cube roots. Sounds good to me. So kind of the same thing. If I said the cube root of x is equal to 2, well, how do you get rid of a cube root? Well, if you get rid of a square root by squaring both sides, wouldn't you cube both sides? So if I cube both sides, that again gets rid of the cube root, and I just get x, and 2 cubed is 8, and that's the answer to that problem. Okay? That's not bad, right? So, let's do another cube root. How about cube root of x plus 4 equals 3? Well, I'm going to cube both sides. So again, that takes that away. And I get x plus 4 equals 3 cubed, which is 27. Put that in your calculator, that's fine. And then we're going to subtract 4 from both sides. So x is equal to 23. Okay? It's not bad. So, let's just do, we already did a problem like this. Let's just do another one. So square root of x minus 4 plus 3 is equal to 8. So what are you going to do first? Remember, this has got to be all by itself before you can square both sides. So I'm going to subtract 3, get rid of that. So the square root of x minus 4 is equal to 5. And then I'm going to square both sides. So x minus 4 is equal to, right, because that goes away. is equal to 25, and then add 4 to both sides. So you get x equals 29. That's not bad. Cool. All right. Let's see. How about something it's just a little different here. If I said the square root of x plus 2 equals -3. Now I want you guys to think about this first of all. Is there anything I can take the square root of? I don't care what it is that gives me a negative value, that gives me -3. You guys should be saying no. Okay, there's nothing to take the square root of. If I take the square root of 9, I get 3. What's the square root of -9? Well, if you type that in your calculator, you're going to get an error. You can't take the square root of a negative number. Not now. We'll do that in a couple days. Okay, then you'll have something called an imaginary number. But the point is, when you're solving an equation, you can't take the square root of a negative number to get, or you can't take the square root of a number to get a negative number. It's impossible. Because here, this is what would happen. So again, I'm going to get back to this problem in a second. Let's just say we had square root of x is equal to -3. And let's just say you square both sides, because that's really what a lot of people want to do. You want to square both sides, and that means you're going to get x, right? Because that's going to go away. And you're going to square -3, and you're going to get 9. And then you're going to put that as an answer. Let's look back at the old problem. Square root of x equals -3. I want you to test it out. So what if I put this, I solved for x, and I got x equals 9. Let's see if it really is true. Let's put that 9 back in here, and you're going to say, hey, square root of 9, that should equal -3. Well, of course, the square root of 9 is not -3. It's just 3. And that's why this doesn't work out, because 3 is not equal to -3, right? So the deal is, this is important. So actually, I'm going to delete this here real quickly. So square root of x plus 2, I'm going to write that out here. Square root of x plus 2 equals -3. So here's the deal. After the square root is isolated, which just means all by itself, right? You get it all by itself. After the square root is isolated, if the other side is negative, okay, if the other side is negative, then no solution. Okay? So, but I'm going to get to something in a second here, right? So this is the square root of x plus 2 equals -3. And again, you're going to say no solution. Now, this is different. Notice I said square root. So I'm going to put a 2 here. That's actually really important. I'm going to highlight that with this green highlighter here. Okay? That 2 is important. Because if I had a problem like this, the square root of x, the cube root of x plus 2 equals -3. That's different. Now, why is that different? Well, because if I can take the cube root of a number, cube root of -8. If you go ahead and type that in your calculator, the cube root of -8, it's -2. Because think about it. What's -2 times -2 times -2? It's -8. So I can do cube roots, because you can say a negative times negative times negative is negative, but I can't do square roots, because a negative times a negative, it'll never be a negative. It'll always be positive. Always, always, always. Okay? So if I watch this, I'm going to cube both sides. And that just gives me x plus 2. -3 cubed is put in your calculator, but it's -27. Okay? And then I'm going to subtract 2 to solve, and I get x equals -29. And that's okay. Because watch, if I take that -29, and I'm going to put it back into this equation here where there's an x. Okay, so if I do that, I'm going to get the cube root of -29 plus 2. And is that equal to -3? That's my original problem. And sure enough, the cube root of -29 plus 2 is -27. If you put that in your calculator, you will get -3. So it does work. Okay, square root. So let me just kind of write one out here again, just so we're good to go. Okay, so if I have the square root of x equals negative 3 versus the cube root of x equals negative 3. This one's no solution. This one, I can do it because cube root, so I'm going to cube both sides. X equals negative 27. Okay? Very, very important. Okay, so one last type of problem here. I'm going to do a couple examples here. But one last type of problem is if I give you the square root of x plus 3 equals the square root of 2x plus 5. So if you have a square root on both sides, you can't move one over to the other. I mean, you can't isolate because you got one square root on one side, one square on the other side. So this is actually easy. Literally, I'm going to square both sides just like I did before. And so the square root goes away. And the square root goes away. And we solve for x. So I'm going to subtract x, put that over here, and I'm going to subtract 5. So I get, this cancels out, and I get x on this side, and this cancels out, and I get negative 2. So x equals negative 2. Okay. Now if I put that back in the original problem, check it out. If I put negative 2 in there, I get negative 2 plus 3. So here, let's go write the old problem out. X plus 3 equals the square root of 2x plus 5. So if I put a negative 2 in for x, I get the square root of negative 2 plus 3, just to check it, equals the square root of 2 times negative 2 plus 5. So negative 2 plus 3 is 1. And negative 4, right? 2 times negative 2 is negative 4, plus 5 is 1. Hey, 1 equals 1. All right, it works. Okay? So that's pretty easy, right? So just real quickly, another one, and then I got 2 more I want to do with you guys. So if I said the square root of 3x plus 4 is equal to the square root of x minus 6. Okay, sweet, square both sides. 3x plus 4 equals x minus 6. Okay, so I subtract x from both sides, and then I subtract 4 from both sides. So I get 2x here, and I get negative 10. I'm going to divide both sides by 2, so x equals negative 5. So this is kind of a different kind of problem. You're actually not going to really see this kind of problem on a quiz or test. I just kind of did this problem because I want to show you it doesn't always work. So let's look at that x. You got x equals negative 5. If I plug that back into here, watch this. Let me just write it out again. The square root of 3x plus 4 is equal to the square root of x minus 6. Let's plug that in. I put a negative 5 in there, so 3 times negative 5 plus 4 equals negative 5 minus 6. So 3 times negative 5 is negative 15 plus 4 is negative 11. So the deal is you can't take the square root of a negative number. You can't have a negative in here. That's impossible. If I go to check it and hit the square root button, it would give me an error. So this one actually is no solution, no real solution. Okay, we're going to talk about imaginary solutions next time, but it's not a bad idea to check it, to plug it back in just to see if it's going to work. Okay, the ones you're going to get that I'm going to show you guys are going to be good. Okay, they're going to work out when it's a square root on both sides like this. Otherwise, you know, like you could have, I said the square root of, x plus 2 equals negative 3. That one is no solution. Okay, so real quickly, one last problem. Again, don't worry about that one. I just want to show you. I think it's important to show you guys stuff. Okay, if I give you a problem like this, 2 times the square root of x plus 3 is equal to the square root of 8. That's a good one. Okay, I like that. Square root of 8. All right, so what you're going to do is you're going to square both sides. So watch this. This is a little crazy, but if I square both sides, I get, now be careful. You're used to saying that square root takes this away, or the square takes this away, right? But this is not another square root, a 2. So you're actually saying 2 squared, and then you're saying x plus 3 equals 8. Okay, so be careful, right? If that, you can't divide both sides by 2. I mean, you could. That just makes it messy. But that 2 squared is actually 4. So it's 4 times x plus 3 equals 8. Okay? So now you got to solve it. All right? So this is, again, I want to show you, this is the only tricky thing right here, is that 2 is on the outside of the radicals, so that squared becomes 4. It doesn't just stay at 2. The x plus 3 radical squared is x plus 3. All right, so let's continue on with this problem. So I'm going to distribute the 4, so I get 4x plus 12 equals 8. And then I'm going to subtract 12 from both sides. So I get 4x equals negative 4, divide by 4, x equals negative 1. Now, some of you guys are like, well, Mr. Carpus, before, when it was negative, it didn't work out. I can't remember what the other problem was. Let's go, if I check it, let me look at the original problem. If I put a negative 1 in there, do you guys agree it's going to be 2 times the square root of negative 1 plus 3 equals square root of 8? So negative 1 plus 3 is 2. So it's 2 root 2. Let's simplify square root of 8. You can put it in your calculator to check it out, but isn't square root of 8 2 times 2 times 2? So the 2 comes out, right? So what does that equal? It equals 2 root 2. Hey, how you doing? Same thing. Okay, so it did work out. Okay, so, you know, I gave you just a bunch of different examples, and hopefully you guys are good to go with all this stuff. All right, that's it, math fans. You have an outstanding day. Adios. Goodbye.